The Trinity, not in the Bible. So how do we get it? Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. The idea of the Trinity really didn't start becoming a thing until the mid to late 100s, and it wasn't fully formed at all at that point. It was first kind of mentioned. The idea began with this guy, Ignatius of Antioch, and Justin Martyr. So what we see in their writings is the sort of beginning of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and then they pass it off in the late 100s to Irenaeus of Lyons, who starts to formalize the relationship between those three beings, or one being, and we're getting to that. Then in the early 200s, Origen of Alexandria begins to sort of develop it further, talking about the eternal generation of the Son from the Father. But his whole conception, it's not fully the Trinity. And in fact, a lot of his ideas later on in this story are going to be sort of shot down as heretical by a council hundreds of years later. And about 100 years pass before the next big event. That's in 325 at the Council of Nicaea. Now, councils are often called together to address a specific controversy, and that's what happens with the Council of Nicaea. They are there to address the Arian controversy, and Arius had begun to teach that that God the Father and God the Son were of two different substances. And so Constantine gathers together people at Nicaea, and they make the final declaration that no, the Jesus and God are of the same actual substance. So they are fully one being, but also two separate beings. And no, they didn't decide anything on which books were in the Bible. That's Dan Brown. The best story from the Council of Nicaea is when St. Nicholas slaps Arius, but that's for another time. Yes, Santa Claus, that guy. Now, about 50 years later, there's another council, the Council of Constantinople, that is gathered to address another question, like, is the Holy Spirit divine? And they say yes. And that sort of is the moment at which the rough outline of the Trinity is fully endorsed and in place. But wait, there's more. Something as deep and important as the Trinity really requires a lot of deep thought. And a really influential text comes out a little bit later in the 400s by a guy named Augustine of Hippo. He writes a work called De Trinitate, and that is a hugely important document for the deeper thought around the Trinity. Then we round it out in the 1200s with a guy named Thomas Aquinas in his Summa Theologica, where he really goes and puts some deep philosophical thought into the Trinity in that work, the Summa Theologica. Now, this is important because, I don't know if you noticed, it doesn't start for over 100 years, and then it goes all the way through until 1200, or at the least the 400s. So there's a couple of things. When we're talking about developing our own beliefs and practices, this shows that beliefs amongst Christians, even large Orthodox beliefs, don't happen overnight. In fact, they develop over hundreds of years. But this is the thing, they develop. Like, there is an ongoing process of understanding and belief and formation. Nothing is static. And so when you are thinking about forming your own beliefs, don't think that you're going to find them all, you're going to get them down, and that's it, they're going to be static. No, they always are evolving. The other thing that is important to remember here is that these were all done with a lot of people. I don't know if you heard, there's a lot of names, and then there's councils that have huge numbers of people. All of these things were developed in conversation and community. And when you're talking about your own beliefs, that's the best way to do them, right? Not just by yourself, doing your own research, but actually talking to other people that you respect, and saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Community and evolution. Two really important things to remember when you're sort of picking things apart and figuring out what it is that you believe. When I said it wasn't in the Bible, I mean that the people who wrote the Bible had no conception of the Trinity. Did these people read that stuff back into the Bible and use biblical ideas and moments to support some of what they said? Absolutely.